Hi there, Todd here. Welcome to Horse and Hammer. In this episode, I want to try making a large but simple storage container. As you'll see in the video, our shed has a lot of stuff in it, and this is a test to see how practical it is to make my own containers
Marvin.
and boxes rather than buying. Making it from reclaimed wood, particularly fence posts that are more than likely 30 years old or more, brought in a few challenges that I had to get around. A lot of the materials were cupped, warped, had holes in them in funny places, or generally acted like they'd been standing up all their life and were a little bit over what I wanted or needed from them. Typical. That being said, working with this material really helped me learn a lot, and also appreciate being able to get down to the local timber supply for some flat boards. I wanted something fairly big from this box, and it measured up at 800mm long, 500mm wide, and 250mm deep. I wanted to have a simple design that had internal supports at each corner, and also feet on the bottom to get it off the ground. After cutting the wood to length on the miter saw and simultaneously discovering that several of the teeth on the blade had been chipped off, I moved over to the table saw to rip the rounded over sides off the fence posts. This brought them all to a uniform width, making them a bit easier to work with, and showed me that I was right in never sitting directly behind the table saw. That offcut would have struck me somewhere I'd prefer not to be struck. Once I'd edged all the timbers, I had to try to get them as flat as possible. A mate of mine lent me his planer, but I'm not great at using it yet and need a bit more practice, so I made a quick jig, clamped it to my miter saw cut bench, and proceeded to take the paint and dirt off them all with the belt sander. So I sanded and sanded and sanded a bit more. I wanted to get the majority of the saw and belt sander marks off the surfaces for a better finish while still maintaining a rustic look. The offcuts left over from edging the timbers provided a great gap jig for the sides. I started with the short sides first, not sure why, but it seemed like the right choice and it worked out pretty well. I started by attaching the internal supports to each side of the short ends, and after drilling pilot holes, I used a chamfer bit to countersink the ends of the 40mm screws. This gave them a nice flush finish. I only used one screw at each end for the short sides, and that seemed to be enough. When attaching the long sides, I used the same technique but applied 2 screws to go into the supports and 2 to go into the end grain of the short sides. This added a lot of structural strength to the piece as each side was added. I'll talk more about why I didn't do a glue up at the end. Once the 4 sides were all together, it was time to add the floor of the box. I wanted to make sure the panels looked as evenly spaced as the walls, so I put the outside pieces on first, then measured up the gap to find its center. I probably did use a few too many screws to attach the outside planks, but as the feet would also be anchored to the underside of the box and to those outside planks, I wanted to make sure they wouldn't come loose. Putting the centerboard in next made laying out the last 4 pieces of the bottom very simple. While editing, I found out that my camera battery had carked it before you could see the continuation of my glorious fabrication skills in action. Also, off camera, I cut a 30-degree miter at the end of each of the feet so that they had a better chance of surviving when I inevitably moved the box across the floor with my foot. Come on, we both know what's going to happen. With everything assembled, it's time for the finish. I used the same marine grade polyurethane varnish as the last 2 projects, but this time, after some advice, I added a little mineral turpentine to help in the application, and also because I was just about to run out of it. It brushed on very easily and actually soaked into the wood a bit more than just sitting on the surface. The color of the reclaimed wood really popped during application. At this point, I knew I'd made the right choice in using this material. It provided the look I was going for, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. Some of you have probably noticed I didn't use any PVA glue to hold the box together other than the screws I used. To be honest, I don't know how successful a glue up would have been, as the boards didn't really maintain much surface contact with each other, being warped and cupped as they were. If I make this project again and I have some flat boards, I will definitely use some glue. But I tested this box by dropping it on the ground from waist height, and it made a very satisfying thunk instead of a, oh my god, I'm going to fall to pieces, crunch. So far, this is my 3rd project for this channel, and I've got a lot of ideas already for upcoming projects. If you enjoyed this one, if you've gotten a few ideas or seen anything that I could improve on, please leave a comment and a like, and I'd also be really grateful if you considered subscribing. Stay safe out there in these weird times we're all going through, and as always, thanks for watching.